Did. Come back over. Live. Oh, why is it finished?
Good morning to all of our Houston family. Thank you for gathering with us this morning. I am excited about this morning's conversation. Before we get started, we want to make sure that we give a huge shout out to the ladies, the fierce divas of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, Sorority Incorporated, and their president, Madam Trisha Mays Johnson. Amen. We are excited that they have hosted this morning's conversation. And y'all heard me say amen. So that means, y'all know how to kind of get me to stop talking, fellas, right? And we're going to lean into you guys this morning. But I'm excited for this morning's conversation. We are going to talk from a subject matter that I think is vital for this season, for this moment in time where we know there is a lot of chaos going on in the world we're living in, right? And so this morning's conversation is going to be on the black men's conversation on the power of vulnerability. Right? Us being able to have some good discussion relevant to mental wellness and what our connection to it is, fellas. And so I want to make sure that not only are we having conversation that is relevant to you all, so make sure you are chiming in, make sure you're posting in the chat. If you've got questions, if there's something we talk about that stands out to you that you want to hear more of, make sure you're engaging with us in the chat. At home, we want to make sure that you are present in this conversation. But before we move any further, I don't know if you all can see the strong black presence we've got here today from these illustrious men. But we want to know a little bit more about you all. I am Dr. Brandon Williams. I am by trade a licensed professional counselor. I do a lot of different things, but being a community advocate and hosting conversations like this is my jam, you all right? So I want to lean in today, but before we go any further, I want to know a little bit more about you. So to our panelists, we've got some amazing men that have gathered with us to be able to share their experiences from the construction industry all the way to the pharmaceutics, right? And so you can't tell me what black jobs look like, right? And so this conversation, we want to make sure engulfs a plethora of different experiences. So fellas, I'm going to toss it over to you. I feel like I've already been doing enough talking, but I'm going to toss it over to you all to talk more with us about one, tell the folks who you are, right? That may be introducing and or welcoming to some. But tell the folks who you are, and I want to know how you connect to the topic of mental wellness, right? Each of us have our own personal stories. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, how you connect to the folks, and how folks can connect with you. Jerry, will you start us off on the other side? I'm not sure if my mic is still working, you all, but if you'll start us off, Jerry, and then we'll just kind of flow through the rest of the panel this morning.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that beautiful introduction that you had. Again, I want to also thank the ladies of the North Harris chapter of Delta Sigma Theta for hosting this event. Again, my name is Jerry Brooks. I am a licensed attorney in the state of Texas. I've been practicing law for the past 20 years. I also serve as a chief legal officer and compliance officer for one of the largest black-owned commercial construction companies in North Texas, Postdale Group. And Brandon, for me, this is a topic that hits home. It's a topic that I know that not only personally I've had some bouts with, but I have a 16-year-old son that this has also touched. And so this is a topic that is vitally important to me, to our community,
Yeah.
because we don't touch on this enough.
For sure.
There's, a lot of stigma and things that play into this, and I know we'll get into that here later, but I'm certainly glad that, we have this panel of men here to discuss this topic, and hopefully for people that are watching, it'll bring it home and touch someone out there as well. So
Absolutely.
I'm definitely glad to be part of this panel.
Yes, me too. Thank you. Welcome. Next.
See if you can download the app.
There we go. We make it
All
work.
right.
Make it
All right.
work.
We're gonna make it work this morning.
All right. My name is Jarrell Brown. I am originally from Raceland, Louisiana, which is a little small country town. I am a U.S. Army vet. I am a board certified behavior analyst. Growing up in a small country town, I didn't see a lot of black representation, like as far as like going to school and getting degrees, and we didn't talk about mental health the way that we are currently in this state. And for me, it's an honor to be able to sit here and have this conversation with you. So like working as a board certified behavior analyst and going to school, that helped me to be able to identify the tools and the skills that I need to be better. And so for me, it's like that each one teach one. So it's like now that I have these skills and these tools from going to therapy and life experience and being a life coach, I think it's very important that we have these types of conversations, because there are a lot of people out there that feel like they are alone in the world and they're the only ones that are experiencing it. And I think it's important to be able to see this black representation sitting here today to show people like, hey, we all have our struggles. And we hope that, again, that somebody out there is able to watch this and move forward into their day and into the tomorrows because of this conversation, and go forth and have other conversations with other people. So I'm thankful to be here.
Yeah, I love that. I heard something we're gonna have to lean in a little bit more, hopefully throughout this conversation, is that not only are we talking about mental wellness, but you're experiencing it. You went to therapy, right? And what that looks like. I definitely want to turn back around to kind of see what your experience was, and speak to that voice for sure. Yep. Yes.
From me?
Yes, please. Very.
Yes. Greetings everyone, the people in the back, the Deltas. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to share this message with anybody out here. I just want to say that my name is Foster Ray Bradbury Jr. Everybody know me as Bradbury. I am the vice president of a company, my construction company is Blackstone Construction. If you can look us up on BlackstoneCustomHomes.com, and we fulfill any needs that you have. Moving past that, we're going to discuss the mental health aspect of it. I'm a help because I am a guy that believes in therapy.
Yeah.
I've been going to therapy for quite some time. I've dug into therapy from a very young age. I've been summoned by the courts to go to therapy. And some battles that I have and some battles that my kids have. And I'm here to address with you people that I'm just like y'all. It's no difference between me and you, and I just want to share my experiences and try to help you guys along the way.
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Jamar Barnes. I am originally from Tacoma, Washington, Houston, Texas, though bred and born mostly. I am a retired educator, and also I am the chief strategist for OOTR Consulting. And mental health is important to me because in addition to the work that I do in the community and advocating for our children and our people, people that look like us, I'm also one half of the writing team of Men Are Right, which is a 142-day journal for men to discuss and sit with themselves and honor their truths. And so this work is important to me, and mental health is important because I do it every day. I've been in therapy for about 5 years. This was just my 5-year therapy anniversary. So just very excited about that work. We can't be what we don't see. And so I believe that being a black male, stepping into the space and doing journaling in small groups every month, it allows my community to see what they need to see. So this work is really important for me.
All right. Good morning. My name is Keith Hudson. I'm a pharmacist by training. Now I'm a business consultant for Harmony Road Recovery, helping in the recovery industry. I also volunteer with NAMI Greater Houston, and I'm a 15-year volunteer with them, and I teach peer-to-peer because I too suffer from a mental illness. I have depression, major depression, and so I wanted to give back to people to help, and so I've been going to therapy and getting help, and I have kids that suffer with some form of mental illness. One that brought us to NAMI was autistic. He is autistic. And NAMI helped me to realize what was going on with me and what was going on with them and understand the process. So I also help with reentry program with NAMI. I teach a class with reentry. And so reentry is the only place where I see black men. Unfortunately, we go all over this city and 3 counties, and you very rarely see a black man in one of our sessions. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom in going to these sessions. You learn about the disease process, you learn about how to cope, strategies to use, and if you're a family member who has a person who is diagnosed, they have classes for those, and it really helps people understand what mental illness is, and it kind of takes some of the stigma and the shame and the guilt that comes with it.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I want to just kind of sit there, if we can, fellas, and I want to lean in, Keith, to exactly where you just brought the conversation of how do we define what mental wellness even looks like? What is it for you? And you can take a personal approach, you can take a clinical approach, but all of us have had experiences and been able to define what wellness looks like from a black male perspective. I'd love if we can toss it around. Keith, you were already there, so I'd love for you to maybe talk a little bit more about what your personal definition of what mental wellness even is for the black man.
Well, one thing is, the primary thing is self-awareness. You have to recognize that there's a problem. And for me, it was hard. I'm in me, and I don't see it. But my wife came to me and was like, something's going on, right? And you might want to think about seeing a therapist because you seem to be a little blue, okay?
Yeah.
And then I started going, I went to a psychiatrist, they put you on the medication, went to therapy, and when black men, we're not really compliant with the medication, so I get off of it when I feel good. and then my kids would go, especially my oldest daughter, like, are you off your meds? What you talking about, right? Well, you kind of snapping at everybody. Maybe you might want to, wrap that back up. And so, it was having that feedback from the family, but being self-aware to know that, enough to know that there's something wrong and I need to address it and I need to do it now.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love how it was a part of your tribe that noticed what was happening and you trusting them enough to be able to say, hey, yeah, something's not right? Yeah, so that's beautiful. Who else? What are our own definitions of what wellness is and what it looks like for you?
I think mental wellness is exercising, right? So just like we gotta exercise, take care of our body, we gotta exercise, take care of our mind. Yeah. So mental health and wellness is like journaling every day. I just did I was a little late today because I was journaling today, but just kind of sitting down and taking accountability as well, I think a thing that we struggle with as men a lot is accountability. What did I put out there for someone else? What did I put out for myself? What am I not pouring into me? And I think mental wellness is taking care of yourself, exercising your mind, giving to you the way that you give to other people. That's something I'm working on right now. I show up very large for the rest of the world, but how do I show up even larger for myself? Because it's just like on the airplane. If the plane is going down, you can't put somebody else's oxygen mask on before you put your own. So
Exactly.
the mental health and the wellness and the workout, you gotta put your oxygen mask on, your mental health mask, before you can help other people.
Wow, wow. I don't know if anybody else feels that, but that confused me for a long time as a father, as a provider, right? And we live our whole lives with, I'm gonna put y'all mask on first, right? I'm gonna make sure you all have before I have, and to realize that a part of mental wellness is to reverse that, right? That you all never get the oxygen you need if I don't put mine on first. So I love that you tap into that. Who else?
All right. I think one of you guys said it earlier about we can't be what we can't see, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times, like growing up in certain areas, you don't get that representation, right? So a lot of us go through life working day in and day out. You think that that's what life is. And so we're not taking that time to pour into ourselves. And so like when that depression comes up, back in the day, the great grandfathers and grandfathers were like, oh, it's all right, just tough through it. You'll be all right. Just keep pushing and it'll get better. And so a lot of times we're just taught that I need to deal with whatever it is that I'm dealing with. I don't need to talk about it. I don't need to share it with anybody. I read this book by Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child. It's called Checking In, and in the book she talked about being vulnerable and being transparent. And so for me, I would say that I've always been a very transparent person. I never had an issue sharing what I went through, but it was always after I overcame. And so I'm learning to be more vulnerable to say, okay, right now in this moment, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm going through. And I think that the part of that for me, the mental awareness is being able to say, okay, right now in this moment, this is where I am. How do I move forward? How do I get help? How do I talk to people? How do I get comfortable enough to have those conversations outside of myself? So for me, it's learning to do that. And again, I feel like all of us up here gonna have the same thing as like therapy. Like it's taught me a lot.
Yeah, it does, right? It gives us that ability to be able to look inside. But you tapped on, I think, what'll be sort of our key phrase today is that none of that works without this notion of vulnerability, right? This notion of being willing to open up and to see what that looks like. Anybody else want to kind of talk about what wellness means to you?
So wellness for me, here we go. So wellness for me is definitely it's about being honest, and it's about being honest with yourself. It's about if you write and if you journal, if you tell somebody to write how they really feel, they will even lie on that paper. They won't even tell how they really feel on a piece of paper. So for me, it was me addressing those issues with myself first. That's how the wellness begins.
Wow.
If you're not honest with yourself, you're not honest with nobody. Yeah. We talking about a paper between you, the paper, and God.
Absolutely.
And you still lie.
Yeah.
So once you address those things,
But you can go to therapy and still be lying.
and still be lying.
Still be lying.
Reading the lie, word for word. She done read the lie. You done read the lie. I mean, you practice the lie and everything, and then you begin to live the lie, and never put in the work to the healing. So for me, it's always about being honest in that situation, in that circumstance. How do you really feel? How is you taking that in? How did you react? Just be honest.
Really good. Really good.
And I think with that is even some people even struggle. We tell ourselves lies. So it's like we'll be like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. Like my knee hurt, but I'm gonna be all right. But I think like that honesty starts with yourself, being able to look in the mirror and say, I'm not okay.
I think that is definitely one of those things. And we're gonna come back. My next question I'd love for you all to be thinking about is, what is it that makes this conversation so taboo? And I think that is a piece of it, right? That sometimes I don't know what my truth is, right? And so it can become easy to lie to myself. But we're gonna come back around to that. Darrell, talk to us.
So for me, just conceptually, when we think about mental health, at least for me, I think of it as when I get up every morning and go to that mirror and look that reflection back, how do I view myself internally?
Yeah.
And then how do I view the world as looking at me internally? And those can be the same thing or two different things, as well for people that, have certain mental health issues. The other thing too is when we think about the components of mental health, sometimes we think that it's all mental, but it's different aspects of it as well. It's emotional, it's actual some physical components that can affect your mental health. It's what environments you're being placed in. So mental health is just not about the mind, although that's a big component of it. There's other components of it that are affected by our physical health. The places we work, our home environment, how we grew up. All those things are components that affect our mental health and mental wellness.
Yeah, and I'd love for you to stay right there, because I think that gives us a good segue into the things that also, not only do they make up our truth, but they also create some of the barriers for why we as black men don't talk about this, right? Even though it's becoming a more popular conversation, right? We are normalizing, in this generation at least, to being able to go and get help and talking about these issues in a more vulnerable and transparent way. But it's still a bit taboo, fellas, right? It's still not something we're readily kind of transparent with in our communities and in society. Why? Right? Who can maybe speak to that? What would have been some of the barriers, some of the things that you believe are happening in our culture that keep this conversation taboo amongst black men?
I think one of the things is what goes on in this house stays in this house, right? And that's how we were raised. I had one of those stoic fathers that was the strong, silent type. And it didn't matter what the situation was, he was gonna be the rock. My brother died, and I never saw him shed a tear to us, to the ones left behind. He'd go by himself, I think, and cry. But we never got therapy as a family, because God's gonna take it, and He's gonna take care of that problem. You just pray it away. And yeah, God gave you the prayer, and that's important. Spirituality plays a big role, but also God gave man knowledge to help other men.
Wow.
And so we got to take what we know and apply it. And so as a family, we stuffed all that stuff down, and I was at a place yesterday called Bo's Place, which helps families go through grieving when they've lost somebody. And I was sitting there and I was thinking how we never addressed this whole elephant in the room, and it caused family psychosis, and it was always people walking around on eggshells. We didn't mention his name very often, you know what I'm saying? And so the family would have benefited from therapy, learning how to talk, how to work through it, and then it doesn't lead to other things, That's a trauma. I was 10 when that happened, but it was a trauma that stayed with me all my life until I got help and I actually started to express, this back here really affected me in a way that I didn't even see it.
Wow.
And when I look back over my growing up, it clouded everything.
Wow.
And it led to the depression that I ended up having.
Wow.
Because I was stuffing it down. And I just wanted to be by myself all the time.
Yeah.
And people at school would say stuff like this: he's aloof. Right? That was the term. He's always aloof. He just always by himself and to himself. But I was dealing with not only that grief. My father had been diagnosed with a terminal illness that took 15 years, but I was with him when he got the diagnosis.
Wow.
But we never talked about it. You know what I'm saying? And you know, you're in high school and you get something like that, and nobody speaks about it. What do you do with it? Where do I take? Where do I put that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And somebody should have said, you know what? Let's get some help. You know? And but being black people, we don't need no help from outside this house. We'll deal with it the best way we can.
Yeah. So our families of origins, where we come from, what our homes were when we were raised, and some of the rhetoric, right, that we were raised on is a lot of what I hear you expressing, Keith, keeps this conversation from not even being a thing for us. Yeah. Who else?
I think it makes me think of two things. One, we'll tell the black man, you need help, you need to go get therapy, but where do we get that from, right?
Wow.
We're gatekeeping the resources, right? Who's calling out the websites, right? The Better Health, the AliceCollective.com, like, where do we go outside of these places? Or someone says, you just need to do it, right? I work for the county, right? Like, there is an accessibility where you just can ask someone, hey, where's our list of therapists, right? But if you don't know that, you don't know that, right? I think the other thing about that is the way that we're raising our black boys, right? The way we raise a black girl and the way we raise a black boy are totally different. A girl falls and gets hurt, we all going to her, we're gonna hug her, we're gonna kiss her boo-boo. A boy falls, oh, he good, he'll be all right, shake it off, big dog.
Shake it off. Yeah.
Right, like, but are we,
hard.
right, and are we acknowledging that, right? Because then if a boy is soft, he's weak, right? I think the way that we raise our boys turns into the way that our men turn out to be.
Yeah.
And then when you raise a boy to emotionally not unpack, to carry everything, he becomes the adult that hurts everyone else. And in hurting everyone else, he's also hurting himself. Because there's a barrier in his relationships, there's a barrier in the way that he communicates, there's a barrier in the way he expresses himself sexually, there's a barrier in the way that he has conversations. And so we have to, as a community, be more responsible of how we raise our black boys so that we can have healed black men.
Wow.
And that's a great point. And just to kind of co-sign on that, I think it's hard for us to ingrain and tell black men and black boys to be strong and not be weak, and then expect for them to be vulnerable at the same time. Because in somebody's mind, it's hard for me. Well, you ingrained for me all these years to be a strong black man, but now you're telling me to be vulnerable and do this and that may come off as being just the opposite of what we've been taught. And it's kind of dissecting that and almost retraining a whole generation of black men to understand, no, that is actually you being strong. You know, that's you being responsible for your wellness. Just like we teach our black women and our daughters, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable in these things. We need to also teach our black men and our black boys that.
Can I say this? I watch my son be raised in a house where we do those things. We take care of our mental health, right? But because when he goes outside those doors, he's got to be a certain way, right? And it's expected him. He got those cues very early on, so he'd be upset, and anger's the only way he could express himself. And I say, son, you can let it out here, right? But in front of people, oh man, I got to be hard, I got to be tough, I can't let them see me, be vulnerable. And other kids will ridicule you, in elementary school, dealing with it, and they cry easy and that kind of thing. But he learned quick, man, you can't do that. But it was from the other kids. because they haven't been trained.
Yeah.
And they perpetuate that idea that you're soft, you're weak, so you learn how to fight early. And you can fight, you know what I'm saying? And try it, you know what I'm saying? And but it's just the stigma that's placed on taking care of your mental health is so strong in our community that it's almost disheartening. I tell you, it's like me and my wife gave a talk at a church, and this happens every time we go to a black church. We talk about mental health and what it is, and then the line is, it takes us 2 hours to get out because people want to talk about it. Yeah, people want to talk about it and want to get more information. They never heard some of the things we're saying, and you know, I'm like, how come? What is going on that it takes this long for us to get out?
Yeah.
You know, these people are hurting.
Absolutely.
You know, men and women.
Absolutely. It makes me think to the conversation and a quote by Dr. Brene Brown, where she talks about vulnerability is the most accurate depiction of what courage actually looks like. Right? And how we have to redefine what that looks like for our young boys, right? And the ability to kind of take this conversation. I want to challenge us and maybe dig there as we leave this notion of culture, talking about culture and its roots for us. What would you tell your younger self from what you've learned? Maybe it's a rhetoric that you are exchanging with your son of how to be able to take this notion of vulnerability and disassociate it from weakness. What's that conversation look like, you all? Let's maybe be a little bit more practical of what that looks like. How are we redefining this in our homes?
So, in my home, so I have two sons. Both of them have been to therapy. Both of them have their challenges, and we get those addressed. The first thing that you have to do is, once again, to be honest. These kids are not going to be nothing like me. They're not going to see a day that I saw. They're not going to live a day that I lived. And I have to break myself down first and know that I cannot raise them the way I was raised. It's two different worlds. We living in two different worlds. These kids got everything, and I had nothing. You know, they got rooms. I shared one bedroom with 9 people. So we talking about two different things, and once you tap into all that, then you start getting the truth from your kids. You know, that's the whole thing. You gotta be a safe place for your kids. And my kids, I just want them to know, like, once I had my personal spirit with my son when he was in the hospital for a year, 1 year straight. When I went up there to the hospital, you know, we took it for granted. We thought he was just, you know, sick. I mean, if he's sick, you know, we'll go up there, get a cup out of you guy. No, he was, I was about to cuss off. He was messed up. And so at that point in time, as a father, that crumbles you. That crumbles you. All my kids look at me as, when I show up, something gonna happen. And when I showed up this time, it was nothing. I could do it. So I went to what anybody that, you know, my first reaction, tear this place down. Tear it all down. Tear down doctors, tear down hospital. Something gotta happen right now. And it was my son who said to me, if you do that, you're gonna mess it up for everybody. So they called the cops and everything, and they came up there, but I got him in the surgery that day. But like I said, I just want to be honest and transparent. So sometimes you gotta take it there, and I'm that kind of guy to take it there for my kids, and I always want them to know that. No matter what, if I show up, I'm gonna take it there, and we're gonna get something done.
But I think that is a very real notion, because what you're bringing in the fold is this transparency. And how oftentimes do we try to have these conversations with our young people where it's hey, you can be softer now, hey, you don't have to do that, but we're not living that. Right? And so for them to see dad, for them to see uncles, for them to see black men show up and cry, show up and feel, it can be something that shifts their entire worlds and actually puts a tangibleness to what we're teaching them, but they actually get to see it in action, right? And so that's exactly what I'm hearing from your story. Thank you for sharing that with us, right? Yeah, who else?
Excuse me. So when we talk about like the vulnerability, for me, at a young age, growing up, we didn't have social media the way it is. We didn't have social media the way it is right now. So the newer generation, they have a whole new struggle with what they're dealing with, and that idea of I need to be this person. I need to engage with the world a certain way because of what society tells us to be. But what I've learned and what I can tell my younger self is like that vulnerability is once you learn to be vulnerable with yourself, that need for acceptance and approval from other people goes out the window. And I think that sometimes, for me, going to therapy, it allowed me to say, okay, I know who I am as a person. I know what I need to do to work on myself. And the more I did that and the more I worked on myself, the less I worried about what other people thought.
Wow.
So if I show up into a space and I'm being my authentic self, if I'm not accepted, then that means that's just not the space for me to be in. And I think that a lot of the generation right now, they're struggling with that. Even like for us as, grown men and, grown women out there, the stuff we see on social media, it's a struggle at times.
Yeah.
But I think that the work that we do within ourselves gives us that strength to be able to say, I'm good.
Yeah.
And that's something that I learned, and I wish I would have known that 35 years ago.
Yeah.
I wish, I heard my stepmom tell me this last summer, there's facts, there's feelings, and then there's the truth. And the fact is what is happening. The feeling is how you feel, and the truth is the reality of what's going on. And so I wish I would have told myself as a kid, your feelings report to you, they don't drive you.
Wow.
Because as an adult, I used a lot, I will be 42 this year. For 41 years of my life, I let my feelings drive me, not report to me.
Wow.
And so now I am controlling my feelings, and I can say, okay, I feel angry about this thing, but I don't have to flip the table this time, right? I feel sad about this thing, but I don't need to lay in bed all day. I feel excited about this thing, but I don't have to run up my credit card today. I don't have to do that. And so I think that is the thing. And then the other thing is learning, I would say about 2 or 3 months ago, I heard someone say something that rocked me about vulnerability and transparency. Transparency is when you're being honest. Vulnerability is when you're being naked. And so if I'm transparent, it's really hot outside, right? But if I'm vulnerable, I don't want to go outside because it's super hot and I sweat a lot, and because of my health condition, I probably can't be outside. But that's probably not something I want to share with everyone, right? So just also teaching my younger me, saying, hey, Jamar, there is transparency, there's vulnerability, and also like, how do you manage and control? You control your feelings. Your feelings don't control you because they're inside of you. They belong to you, and you don't belong to them.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
One of the things that I learned in therapy a few years back, so my therapist told me that you have your feelings, your thoughts, and your behaviors. And so as a behavior analyst, like I focus a lot on behavior, right? And so when I had a conversation with my therapist, she said that those 3 things don't always happen at the same time. Sometimes like you just start having like thoughts that pop in your head, right? And it's up to us to be able to say, okay, before this thought turns into a behavior or it turns into a feeling, where do I intervene? And so like it's like, for example, there's days where if I'm in a little depressed mood or something like that, I'm like, okay, I just want to chill and relax. But I have to remind myself that it's okay to take that downtime. It's okay to take that mental health day. But I can't do this for 3, 4, 5 days out of the week, because then my feelings and my thoughts are going to follow that behavior. And so once you have all of those combined into one, then that's where we begin to struggle. And I think like for me, I've learned to be able to identify, kind of what we were talking about earlier, when you have those moments of this is becoming my reality, and it's not if my reality is my norm and it's not what I want it to be, but how do I change it? And so I've been able to be more aware of what's happening in that moment so that I can make adjustments. Whether it be, okay, let me get up and go out to eat today by myself and sit at the bar, grab me a drink. If I just want to go take a ride, go walk at the park. And doing those small things change my whole mood around. And so for the last, I'll say 2-3 years, that's helped me to get past some of those darker days.
Yeah.
See what therapy does.
Yeah, absolutely. I may need to borrow one of you all's mics, but I don't want to interrupt the conversation just for the technical glitches, because this conversation is really good, and hopefully for you all at home, engage with us. What are some of the things that for you are also some of those cultural narratives that go unspoken for you? So I'd love for you all to add some thoughts to the chat. We'll be able to check in with them. We'll make sure we save some time for you folks to be able to engage with them folks at home as well. But I think to take this conversation to the next level, I'd love to also tap into the day and age we're living in right now. Right? I think as black men, to have this conversation really does us a disjustice by not talking about the political, systemic marginalization that we're experiencing in this society, that our young people are experiencing, all of the things, right? And so how does that play a role in this conversation we're talking about with vulnerability, right? I'm just gonna leave that there, but give me your thoughts there. How does that play a role in the realness of what being vulnerable looks like in this society?
So I'll take it and start it just using an example of me as a black lawyer. I'm in a profession where it's less than 5% of all lawyers are black. And being a lawyer is already stressful enough. Lawyers have one of the highest suicide rates of any profession that there is, just because of the stress of dealing with clients, judges, and a whole number of things. But then it makes it tough enough where you go environments where you may be the only person in the room that looks like us. Or going to the environment where those people come from generations of wealth and prestige, and I'm a little country boy from growing up in Alabama with 4 other siblings that live in a small home, and so that just adds on the already added stress to that profession. So it makes it then hard for you to be vulnerable in those situations, because who can I trust? Who do I feel that really has my well-being at hand? And so, and then you translate that into other relationships. Just going out. I'm married now, but before I married my wife, going out and just dating or meeting people, you have to be able to be vulnerable in those situations as well, and sometimes you can't, again, because you don't want, and this goes back to with what you said. Sometimes you don't want people to know the real you, because you're afraid that if they really know you and all your traumas and hurts, they're going to look at you kind of how you may look at yourself in the mirror. And so it can make it very hard to be vulnerable unless you do the things that we talked about here. Number one, go to therapy. Number one, figure out your authentic self. Be happy with the person you are. If I'm not happy with who I am, I really can't expect anybody else to accept me in this world.
Yeah. And I think it even, just to kind of reframe this question even more, it becomes an even greater challenge when we are existing in a culture, in a society, right, that is telling our young black boys who they are, right? Who's depicting or telling them that their worth is not as much as everyone else's, right? In a marginalized system. So that becomes an even greater barrier that I think we've got to hurdle over, especially when we talk about vulnerability, right? So I'm hearing so much of that. Yeah, other thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of have a similar experience, right? So as a board certified behavior analyst, I do applied behavior analysis with individuals with autism. And within that field, I've been in the field since 2012. I've never worked under a black male supervisor. I have never had a black, I think I've had 1 or 2 black female supervisors. I am currently serving as a clinical director at the clinic that I'm at. I am the first black male clinical director that I've physically met in person. And so one of the things that getting up until this point in my career, what I struggled with is dimming my light, because I didn't want to, like, just as a black man and as like just your presence is intimidating for some people. And it's like I had to learn that I'm not intimidating, you're just intimidated by me. But I allowed what they thought and what they felt to drive my behavior. And so like getting to a point in my life and in my career where it's like, I'm gonna show up my authentic self. I'm gonna show up who I am. If I wanna wear my Jordans, if I wanna wear my Nikes, I'm gonna do that. But it was hard because when you have certain people above you, they're looking at you a certain way. And they can't, if they don't know you, if they don't understand your background, they don't understand your culture, they don't understand those things, certain things are then a threat to them. And so for me, I hope people are able to show up as who they are authentically. And I think, like we talked about earlier, is once you learn to be vulnerable with yourself, you show up. And once you realize that who you are is more than enough, then the world is yours. And that's something that I've learned.
You're absolutely right. It also makes me think to this notion, have you all heard of the term code switching?
Yes.
Right? And how many of us have to oftentimes do that in the world we exist in, but to still be able to find an authentic self in the midst of that is really the journey that I think I'm hearing so much from all of you all as professionals, as men, as fathers, all of those things, right? Keith, another thought?
Something he just said. The first thing my son said to me was, when I said, maybe you need to go to therapy. Well, I want a black man. Man, we looked high and we looked low for an American black man. Nothing wrong with, other cultures, you understand what I'm saying? But our experience is unique to other black people in diaspora, right? And so we found a guy, and he felt comfortable enough because he saw all the degrees he had. He was from Nigeria, and he had been he'd gone to medical school in Nigeria, had to do it here, so he had like 12 diplomas. So he's like, he's smart, but he still didn't have the understanding of what it is to be a black man in America. And so we don't have enough black men in the field to address these things. And who do you feel comfortable talking to? Do you feel comfortable talking to somebody of another race, or do you feel, I feel more comfortable talking to another black man. I can open up to him. You see what I'm saying? And I feel like they would understand the struggle that I'm dealing with without having to think about it. You know what I'm saying? Now, I had a therapist. I did have a black woman therapist, and that made it a little easier. But had it been a black man, I could be more vulnerable with him because he understands me, and it's a thing that is unspoken between black men. We know, when I look at you, I know I can relate to your struggle. I see your struggle because your struggle is my struggle, So I encourage people out there to, try and encourage these kids to go into the field. We need this, we really do.
Challenge for the second challenge. I think that I've had the last two therapists I've had been black female. I've had one white female who I loved, white female. Then there was another white male. I don't know if it was white, it was just other. So, but with him, that was the first person that I actually opened up and talked to. Okay. So there were maybe like three therapists before that who I was just like, okay, I'm not feeling this. But with this particular male, at the time I was actually in Iraq. And I remember I was just struggling. And I went into the therapy session with this man and I said, you know what? There's so much on my heart and on my mind that I just need to get off. I don't care if this man understands me. I don't care if he gets it. I just need to get this off of my heart. And so for me in that moment, it was like a weight that was lifted. So what I would say is, yes, if you want a black therapist, black male, black female, seek out that black female, but at least start. Because you never know, you might find somebody that surprises you. Because I think the thing when we look at education, when you go to school, they're gonna give you the books, they're gonna give you the papers and read these case logs and all of that. And so like for some people, if they've been in the field and they've had that experience, right? So you as a black male might be helping that white female or that white male to learn the culture better so that they can provide better therapy for our culture and our people coming up. So I think it's just being able to allow them the opportunity to show you, can they help you or not? If they can't, then like, okay, you know what? I just spent three sessions with you. This ain't working out for me. Let me go somewhere else.
I want to affirm what both of you are saying, and in my experience, when we talk about culture and showing up and those things, one of my North Stars is nothing for us without us, right? So I want to be around my people, right? That doesn't mean you can't be around other people, but in the places that I have been the first black male teacher to do a startup program at a school. At a company I worked at, I was the only black man on this one team. I was my only team for 3 years, right? At the one of the projects I'm working on right now, I'm the only black man that goes into this space every day. And so I think also when we tie it back to mental health and therapy and wellness, sometimes there's a lot on our back being the first, being one of one, the only one, right? But also there's a juxtaposition in that while I am the only one, I kind of am the person that has to kind of carry the baton over the finish line, right? Showing up authentically as ourselves. I'm gonna wear a blue jean jacket and baseball hat to work when people got on time, right? But that also lets other black men like me, like I walked into a space one day with a hat on, 3 days later, the other black man across the way had his hat on, and it was just kind of like, I see you, right? And there are things that only we can relate to, right? And so when we walk into spaces ourselves and we show up authentically, we open the door for somebody else, right? I have seen places where I am a place and I am the first, and then there's a second that comes behind me. It may only be two. It only may be two little pieces of pepper in a patch, but at least we got two, right? And I think when we show up, and again, it ties back to what I think you were saying about one of you having more black men in the mental health space. So we got a black man going to school. He's becoming a therapist. He's becoming a psychologist. He's becoming a psychiatrist. We got one. Let's get another. And that opens the door for us. So we just kind of got to prop it open and hope that others come in, but we got to show up so that other people can show up too.
I think you are bringing in a great segue into our second to last portion of this conversation, where we get a chance to also talk about how do we change this, right? What are some tangible things that if you had to challenge other black men out there, challenge ourselves, how do we change this narrative? What is it that we can begin doing? What's our call to action around vulnerability, around mental wellness, that can begin to make some tangible changes in our communities, in our societies, and maybe even in our culture as a whole? What are some of those things that maybe come to mind for you?
So, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We have an initiative program. We have an initiative program that we call Brother You On My Mind, where we reach out to different brothers and just check on them. It's so much going on, then you can always just reach out. Because one day it might be them, the next day it might be you. So I think that's one of the ways that we can flip this thing and making it understandable that I heard just like you heard. I feel just like you feel. I might not cry as loud as you, but I cry sometimes. So I think that's a way to reverse this thing. And once again, like I always gonna keep saying, it's just be honest. My therapist, I've been rocking with my therapist for a long time. She always say, when it's time to cry, cry. When it's time to smile, smile. Don't do something that doesn't fit the situation. And that's what we gotta understand, is that we always gotta be honest with each other, be honest with our kids, be honest with our wives, our husbands, and whoever's out there, just be honest with them and tell them exactly what's going on.
You know, I think what we're doing right now is just that. Like, we are having this conversation and being able to share this with the audience that's watching at home, the people that's in the room with us right now. It's a start for everyone. So like for some of us, it may be the first time they've been a part of something like this. For some of us, we've probably been doing it for a while. But I think that, like he said a second ago, when you are brave enough and vulnerable enough to say, okay, I'm going to be the first. Like, I don't see nobody else doing it, but I'm willing to do it. When other people see you, then it starts that trickle-down effect where other people that now have the confidence to do that and show up as their authentic self. And so sometimes it's like, okay, now they can take that within this environment and go somewhere else and show up and inspire people in those different areas. So it's like, you know, when I was thinking it in my head a second ago, I'm like, this sounds cheesy, but I would say I'm proud of everybody sitting here right now having this conversation, because we are being vulnerable, we're being transparent in this moment, and for us to be able to sit here and do this is going to hopefully inspire other people, and then they can inspire other people, and they'll inspire other people to where it's more, this becomes the norm versus the stigma.
That's it. We're normalizing the conversation.
And I would say we have to, it all starts with changing the mindset. And if we get to the point where we can simply say, Black men, it's okay to ask for help. Because a lot of us, we have that stigma that we do not want to ask for help, for a number of reasons. But it starts there, and then it also starts with us as Black men going in and talking to our sons and making sure that they understand the importance of their mental wellness, and us being an example to them by us going to therapy, by us seeking help, by us going to a number of different resources, by us having accountability partners and checking in with other Black men. Our sons see that. So we can't just say these things, we have to actually act upon them, because kids these days, they can see when you're just talking, and so we have to put action behind our words.
I want to add to that, because I was going to say ask for help too, right? But I'm going to add to that, in addition to asking for help, as many yeses as you give other people, give yourself a yes. As many no's as you give other people, give yourself a no, right? Because I think the other part of that is setting boundaries for you, and also honoring yourself, right? Like, how many times does a man say, well, I'm gonna treat myself, right? I'm gonna get a pedicure, I'm gonna buy a new pair of shoes, or I'm gonna, do things that are outside of the norm of, like, let me get a haircut, let me get a shave, right? I gotta buy a belt for work, right? Like, but how many times do we treat ourselves in the way that we treat other people? How many of us here have actually said, I'm gonna check out for the weekend and just go stay at the Marriott downtown by myself? How many of us here have, but our counterparts do it. We do it for, I'm gonna throw a big graduation party for my daughter, but I get my master's and I'm gonna just go to Papados by myself, right? Like, how many of us are treating ourselves the way that we treat other people? And so I think turning the care on ourselves too is important.
So one of the things that I had a conversation with one of my staff at my center a couple of weeks back where we were talking about, she was struggling with some things and she was like, I need support with this. I was like, okay, what does support look like? She was like, well, just showing up. I was like, no, I need to be able to define what it is that you need. Because for me, looking in, you're doing a great job. But if you need support, I need to be able to understand what it is so that I can provide that support. So it goes back to what they were saying about the help. A lot of times people struggle with saying I need help because they don't know what help looks like. They don't know what it is that they need from another person. Yeah. So I think with us as, those people who, have done the work, have done the therapy, sometimes it's about showing up and saying, okay, you know what? I know you're struggling. You can't tell me what you're struggling with, but let's go grab a bite to eat. Let's go work out or something. And in that, having that natural conversation and that vulnerability, it allows them to then open up and say, okay, now you're able to tell me now that you're struggling with this. Now I know how to provide that help. Now I know how to provide that support. Now I know where to get the resources because now I know what it is that you need. So I think like teaching people to be able to define what help is, to be able to define what it is that they're struggling with so that we can provide the resources.
I love that. Pass that to me. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, and we're highlighting so many really cool things, you all. But I want to muddy the water a little bit. Can I muddy the water a little bit, fellas? Because we got to talk real. If we can't keep it 100 with one another, what other space can we do that? And I think that's a part of vulnerability. The other part that this conversation makes me think of with what we can do is also recognizing that some of us, many times, we exist around other fellas that look just like us, that are not emotionally intelligent and or well. And so what do we do? How do we begin to change the barbershop talk? How do we begin to change the community of other black men around us that are perpetuating stigma, that tend to be a part of the narrative that keeps us from being able to be open in many of our spaces? What's that about, y'all? Okay, can somebody maybe just highlight that? Am I the only one that sees that? Let's talk a little bit about how do we change that? How do we begin to hold our communities accountable to the negative stigma and narratives that perpetuate amongst ourselves?
I would say that kind of like how many of us are the first in some of our professions, we got to be the first in our culture, in our own families sometimes, that we have to not be afraid to have hard truths and to educate people that are miseducated. And with that, we might be ostracized. We might be looked down upon. We might be looked as not being real. That's the teaching of the white man, or something like that. All kinds of things that people will throw out. But we have to prepare ourselves for that and kind of recognize that, no, I'm doing this because I love you. I'm doing this because I'm trying to save you. I'm doing this because I'm trying to keep you from having the experiences and pain that I have suffered. And so it's gonna come with some negative thoughts, some people hating on you, talking about you. But if you want to change the culture, it takes all of those things to happen. And hopefully, it may be slow, but people will start to recognize it. And it's just the process of educating people, empowering people to realize, hey, there is a different way, a better way out here of doing things.
Yeah, but that's not always easy, right?
No, absolutely not.
I think to add to what you're saying is calling that out, right? Like if we're around other black men that are doing harmful things and then backing up, we need to redefine what harm is, right? I am a queer black male. I'm not gonna allow someone else to be around me saying some dangerous language, right? there have been conversations that I've had to have with my own friends, some of my fraternity brothers, some of my family members. Hey, this is not okay. And being okay with being like, well, you're not good with it, neither am I. So the relationship might end right here, right? But redefining what harm looks like. We're in a group of men, and you catcalling a woman coming up the block. She don't even feel safe getting in her car, but that's become the norm. And then I'm like, nah, that's like, what are we doing? Because aren't we supposed to be protecting black women? But you degrading her in front of like 5 other men, and then she don't want your number. So now you real mad, right? So now it's turned into a name calling session, right? That's not okay. And so I may need to walk into the car, and then you just delete my number too, because I can't be in this group chat no more, right? So I think redefining what harm looks like and then calling that out and being okay with knowing that sometimes in the flock, the people might be black and you might be the white sheep, right? And being okay with that and finding your people.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
The word that came to mind for me is boundaries. And I think that for us, we have to be willing to set boundaries within our friendship circles, within our family circles. I think one of the things that with my mom, I don't know if she's watching right now, but as I got older and like work on the things that I needed to work on, my mom would say certain things, and I'm like, you know what, that doesn't sit well with my spirit. And she's just like, well, I don't care, I'm gonna say how I feel. I'm like, okay, well, I think this conversation needs to end for the day. I love you, I'll talk to you later. I'll call you another day when we're in a better place. But I think that it's important for us to be able to set those boundaries. We have to be willing to speak up. And if we aren't speaking up, like in ABA, I think we lost another mic. There we go. There we go. All right. In ABA, one of the things that we focus on is like positive and negative reinforcement. So when we're looking at positive and negative reinforcement, we're saying that either I'm adding something or removing something to increase the behavior. So when we're dealing with people who are doing those types of things, if we're continuing to stay around, we're saying that I approve of your behavior. I'm reinforcing your behavior by still being a part of your life. And we have to get to the point where we say, you know what, this ain't cool, I have to remove myself because I don't want you to think that I'm approving of this. So like it's setting the boundaries for me. That's the most important thing.
I love it. Bradbury, you got a thought up there?
Yeah, I got one thought. Definitely different thoughts from the hills. Me and my friends, we are committed to therapy. So the guys that's in my circle, we are committed to it. We do therapy, and those boundaries are gone. We don't have no boundaries. I know exactly how to move if something happened to them. They know exactly how to move if something happened to me. They know where Jimmy Hoffa body is. I know where their bank accounts are, and we'll push it through like that, and just to make sure that everything's cozy if something happened.
Yeah.
You know, we have families, we have wives, we have kids and stuff like that, and we have stuff in place because we've seen different of our friends or people that we know that passed on, and things went haywire. Death is crazy. Death will open up some eyes and bring out some monsters that nobody ever thought would pop up.
Absolutely.
So you need to have people that know exactly what to do when those things happen.
Yeah.
So I think that if you have a group of friends or brother or cousin or whoever it is that you really locked in with, you should remove those boundaries where they can help you just in case something happens.
Yeah, and keep it real with you. Did you want to add a thought? Really good discussion, and I think I'm hearing the notion of accountability. I'm hearing the notion of boundaries, right? And to realize that sometimes that has to happen with our own inner circles is a real part of this conversation, right? There's some fellas that may not get it just yet, right? And not everybody's going to think it's cool. Not everybody's going to think it's the hot thing to do. But to be challenged to be different is oftentimes so much a part of this conversation. So we're getting close to the end, fellas, and we've talked a great deal about highlighting some of the challenges we face as black men in the culture. This last piece of the conversation is really about where we've challenged, and we want to challenge you all to think about what are the things that take us being courageous in our communities to be able to tackle some of these tough subject matters. Going to therapy is courageous, right? Having some of these conversations. But in this last part, I want to talk about connection. right? I want to talk about how we connect. And one of the questions that have come that we've gotten offline, we're hearing you all out in the internet world and the internet space. Thank you all for engaging with us. But we got a question that came in from our women. How can they help support us with our mental wellness? What would be your thought or suggestion there as we kind of head into these last few minutes of this conversation?
Listen and believe us.
Say that a little bit louder.
Listen and believe us.
Wow. Talk more to that.
If somebody tell you they not doing good, they're not well, they just something not right. Believe us. Believe us. That don't mean to go into wife mode or mother mode, and believe us. What is it that I can do?
Check in. You know, every now and then just say, everything okay? Are you handling this situation? You know, your wife, your loved ones, they know, you know, what you go through. They see it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And oftentimes, I think women are afraid to approach us, but you know how to approach us. You approach us with love and with a respectful attitude. Let's put it that way.
You gotta say that to the mic a little bit.
Come to us with a respectful attitude.
Okay. All right.
You see something wrong. Hey, baby.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just seeing something. I just want to get your thoughts on it. You know,
Yeah.
my wife knows how to do it, and she knows how to do it the other way too. So, you know, but it's important that our women understand that you are our soft place. And we battle out there every day. We battle so many injustices. We're looked at as the villain when we walk out the door, you know? And we don't need to be the villain at the house. You know? Love me enough to talk to me honestly, but again, that respect. Men respond to respectful conversation. You know? You can't harangue and you can't confront you can't be my adversary and be my love at the same time. Okay? So that's the thing that I think is important.
I think I've been in places with like supervisors and siblings and relatives, and to kind of affirm what Foster is saying is don't weaponize the truth when we tell it to you.
Wow. Say that one more time.
Don't weaponize the truth when we tell it to you.
Wow.
How many of us have been in arguments, whether a significant other or a coworker or a family member, and then the thing that I told you vulnerably 3 weeks ago, you turn around and use it against me in an argument. Or you turn it around, for those of you who are in authority figures at work, you turn around and use it against your employee, right? Don't weaponize the truth that I shared with you in a moment of vulnerability, because now that shatters the trust between us. Now I don't tell you anything. Now I go back into the shell. Now I'm angry. Now I'm passive aggressive. Now I gotta go pay a whole nother copay to sort this out by myself because you did the thing, right? And I may have flipped the desk, and I probably have to apologize to you and clean it all up, right? But don't weaponize the truth that's being shared.
Wow. I love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, ladies, what he just said, what he just said for most men is one of the most important things that as in particular black men that will shut us down. And I've told my wife this several occasions. If I tell you something and you then turn that around on me, don't expect for me to be vulnerable with you, because now what you've shown me is that I can't be vulnerable, and that can translate in any relationship. So for women or anyone else out there, if you want black men or men in general to be vulnerable, you have to make it a safe space for us to be vulnerable in. You have to understand how we communicate. You have to understand how we relate to things. You have to respect our answers and our responses, even if they're different than how you would respond to a situation. I think sometimes when we communicate, sometimes we want the person to communicate back to us how we communicate, and that's not communication. Communication is me understanding you and listening, and you understanding me and listening.
Yeah.
And so, just for, again, the one aspect that I would give women, or just people in relationships in general, is just understand the person that you're communicating with, and their style of communication, or in a marital or romantic relationship. Understand that person's love language. Understand what that person's been through, and how to approach the situation. Again, like you said, don't weaponize the information that this person is giving you.
Yeah. I love that. It makes me think, if I could kind of jump in here with you all, fellas, it makes me think of how much, when you say understand the person that you're having the conversation with, who you're supporting, this notion of vulnerability is oftentimes not the grown man you're having the conversation with up front, but it is oftentimes the hurts that we carry and have carried from childhood. And so oftentimes in these conversations, right, it also becomes a real part of wellness to say, your spouse, your man in your life, get a chance to get to know the inner child that exists within, right? And give them a chance. And so even if you don't have empathy for the grown man that's sitting in front of you, be able to empathize and to connect with maybe the inner child that man is carrying, that makes a safe space, not for the topical conversation, but for the depth of where you want to take it. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Attachment is one of those things we just highlighted, right? There are a few different things that I think, other questions that are coming from you all in our home audience that I want to make sure we're getting a chance to honor. And so I'll ask this to you all. Is therapy the only solution? What else can be done to help? As a society, as a person, as a black man, is therapy my only solution, or are there other ways that you would maybe ask a man to say, a black man to say, hey, start trying this as well? What would be some of your other suggestions of healthy coping habits?
Well, that's the purpose of therapy. Okay? You have a therapist that you explain what you're feeling, and they give you a healthy way to deal with what you're thinking. I'm gonna give you an example. When I was my most depressed, my therapist and my wife, because my wife is in the mental health arena, she recognizes it too, right? So you have negative speech. Well, what do you mean? Say I drop my phone on the floor. Damn, you stupid. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm damning my own self, right? So the words that are coming out of my mouth are self-fulfilling prophecy. I used to say, I hate my job. I hate this. I hate that. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You dig in and you just really are resentful of the place you're going. And so the therapist said, okay, let's look at it a different way. You dropped your phone on the floor. It was an accident. Are you stupid? No. Are you a stupid person in general? No. Why don't you turn that around and give me a positive word for that situation? I dropped my phone, man, I'm gonna have to be a little more careful. You know, it's all about turning around how you think. And somebody from the outside can sometimes look at you and give you suggestions on what to do, especially if they're trained on how to do it. You know, and there are a lot of different coping mechanisms. Most of the time, people find the wrong coping mechanism. You know, you're upset, I'll go get me a drink. I'm mad, I go smoke me a blunt. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the therapist gives you some healthy ideas. You don't have to act on everything they say, but if it makes sense. My therapist was big on journaling. I'm not big on journaling. I tried it, it wasn't for me. So she had to figure out, hey, maybe try this, and I do something else, and okay, that worked. I like that.
Yep.
And that's what it was about.
I love it. I love it. And while we're passing the mic, you all, we're kind of getting to our final thoughts. Thank you all for hanging on with us all this time. Really good discussion. Let's wrap up this conversation. Keith, those were amazing thoughts with maybe some extra coping, but also some vital resources that you all know that maybe folks out in America, the rest of black men, families that are supporting black men, they don't always know where to go, where to turn. What are those resources? What does that look like while we're also rounding out this conversation? And you know what, Darrell, I'm going to push you even further to also maybe give some final thoughts while you're also sharing those resources as well.
Okay, two things. I think going back to what we're talking about, the additional resources, right? I think we are each other's resources, right? Many years ago, I joined what I believe is the greatest fraternity in the world, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And,
Come on, sis.
It's cool. We was first, we just followed. But listen, what I know to be true.
Let this man speak.
What I know it's okay, brother. It's okay.
He was the first to speak.
It's okay, brother. But I'm saying that resource outside of therapy during the pandemic, there were several times when my line brothers in other states, other cities were not feeling well. We all got in a group chat and said, hey, we're gonna get a plane ticket, we're gonna go there, right? That was a resource, right? I'm in several male group chat, and I heard someone say on Instagram the other day, 3 things we can ask a black man: are you good, are you okay, and how can I help you? Those are ways that we can show up, because every black man may not have insurance, may not have access, may not go to therapy, may not even have the vehicle to do so, but sometimes our communities are our therapy. The other resource I would say when we think about tangible things that are at our fingertips or things that we can access, one, controlling what you follow on Instagram or social media, right? What we pour into our spirit man is gonna build up our mental man. So if I keep following, I've had to mute a whole bunch of these things in the wake of what's going on in this president, right? So I've had to disassociate from some of my favorite pages or people, right? What are we pouring into ourselves? Are we reaching for the phone every day before we wake up? Or are we reaching for another tool? I think if you're here in Houston or even broadly on the internet, the AliceCollective.com, they're a resource here in Houston in that they are broad. You can do in-person therapy. They have free male therapy on first and third Saturdays. They have free women group therapy, second and fourth Saturdays. They work on sliding scales. They work with your insurance. I'm seeing a new therapist with them on Monday at 7 p.m., right? Or if you want to journal, Men Are Right, www.menareright.com. You can get a journal there, and we can start the journey with you. Joining our small groups once a month, they're free. We provide food. So I think finding the resources, going on Eventbrite. There's several places. You just type in mental health on Eventbrite, it's all free. So I think finding those resources.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to challenge each man to stick to 1 minute. We'll wrap up this conversation. But make sure you give a good shout out to a great resource, who you are, what you find, and also give some closing thoughts as you pass the mic.
I'll be very quick. So if you have my number, you have my number. Get with me. I know a whole bunch of different people that you can get in touch with. I have my wife, Benitra. She's a licensed counselor. She can help you. I also have.
Where can we find her?
Man, you had to ask me that. Now I'm getting in trouble. You can find her if you text me. So then we're moving on. I have a good fraternity brother, Michael Clark. Same thing. Just get at me once. Get your information. He'll text you right away. My wife will text you right away, and we get you booked in and everything. But my final thought is that you're not alone in this whole deal. We all deal with things. We just gotta find a way to deal with it. And my suggestion is to get a therapist. And that's all I have to say.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Reverend. Yeah.
You go ahead.
Okay, well, NAMI Greater Houston is a great resource. They have a warm line where If you need resources, that person answering will point you in the different directions because they've got lists upon lists upon lists of different resources. I will say this, if we get enough black men together, we can have our own support group geared just to us through NAMI Greater Houston. They do them on Zoom and they do them in person.
Wow.
So if we get enough interest, I'll be glad to help out with that. But again, like I said, NAMI Greater Houston is great. The Harris Center is the largest mental health organization in Houston. They've got free therapists. You got a free psychiatrist. They work on a sliding scale also. And they have centers all throughout Houston. Whatever area you're in, the Harris Center is pretty much there. And we partner, NAMI partners with the Harris Center to bring services to different, communities. So again, NAMIGreaterHouston.org or 713-970-4419. That's the number to call to reach NAMI Greater Houston.
I love it. I love it.
There's 3 books that I want to mention. I don't know the authors' names, but one of them is Chasing the Lion. Another one is What Happened to You. I know it's with Oprah, and another one with Michelle Williams, Checking In. I think those 3 books they helped me a lot. It allowed me to open up and understand more about who I am as a person. My final thought is just to quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world." It's up to you to be that change. So.
I love it. Thank you.
So just as far as some resources, I know for me personally, a book, and we talked about this earlier, called Boundaries, that my wife had me read. Definitely was eye-opening as far as that book. Just some other resources. I know, again, me personally, I've used BetterHelp as far as finding some therapists. I will say, if you use that resource, again, if you're looking for a black therapist, a black male therapist, it may be difficult. So just, but they do have some good resources on BetterHelp. I'd also say, just for those that go to a church. I know a lot of churches, they have some mental health counselors, or they have additional resources that can get you connected with mental health resources in the community. And then just finally, again, I'd like to stress that for us to not just talk about these things, but to put the things that we've discussed here into action. Because you can have information, but if you don't take that information and put it into action, you'll never have transformation. And so I challenge everyone on here to take these things that we've talked about, put them into action, so that we can actually see the change that we've been talking about today.
Amazing, amazing. Listen, I don't know if you all have been as blessed as I have been just to sit and experience this phenomenal panel of powerful black men. But I want to leave you all with a thought that maybe challenges us in a bit of a call to action with taking these things, to not just allow it to be an isolated conversation, but to be able to take our vulnerability and to be able to change our world. The quote says, "Authenticity is a daily practice of letting go of who we think we were supposed to be and embracing who we actually are. Choosing authenticity means cultivating the courage to be imperfect, to set boundaries, and to be vulnerable." Beautiful words by Dr. Brene Brown that I think can leave us at a place that we challenging you all, and for the families that are supporting black men all over our country and our world, to be challenged today that mental wellness can be a thing if we work towards it, if we stick together and we continue to have each other's backs. I'm grateful to have had this time to moderate this beautiful discussion. You all can continue to tap in with us. We're here. I love you brought up the church. We're close here in the Humble area at the Luke Church. Again, we want to shout out the fierce divas of Delta Sigma Theta here in the North Harris chapter, Alumnae chapter. And so we're grateful for them. But you can also find me at Pastor B LPC on Instagram, and I am also co-owner, my wife and I, who's also a Delta, of Williams Counseling and Consulting. You can find us on Instagram or tap in and reach out at williamscounseling.org for a great resource. Fellas, thank you guys, and thank you all.